Predator is about two things: a group of guys getting force-femme by something more masculine and technologically in control than they are, and how masculinity is a prison that renders straight men unable to communicate and bond with each other. When I say force-femme, what I mean is, this movie puts the most hyper-masculine group in movie history together on camera, and treats them like society treats women, by using an alien that's bigger, more masculine, more in control, and who, because of technology, is able to control who gets to do the voyeurism. And it's fascinating to watch. The art critic John Berger famously wrote that men look at women and women watch themselves being looked at, which film theorist Laura Mulvey expanded on in her famous essay Visual Pleasure in Narrative Cinema, where she popularized the idea of male gaze in art and culture. As Wikipedia helpfully summarizes, Mulvey, quote, proposes that sexual inequality, the asymmetry of social and political power between men and women, is a controlling social force in the cinematic representations of women and men. What Predator does brilliantly is take these absolutely peak representations of hypermasculinity, I mean these are elite special forces guys that are also bodybuilders, and render them impotent and gazed upon. The Predator has bigger and better weaponry than they do. The spear metaphor is quite something. But he also has camouflage and thermal vision, which means that he can follow them around and watch them without being seen himself. And so this has a maddening effect on them in the same way that it does women in real society. There develops a general fear that someone's always watching, always looking at them. Like they're unable to interact with society without being looked at. Like for me, as a dude TikToker, I can have this channel without engaging much with people sexualizing me. But that's not true for any woman that posts on here. Notably, these guys start the movie as the voyeurs and the technologically superior force themselves. They're able to sneak up on their enemies without them knowing, watch them, and easily destroy them. But then they start getting picked off by the Predator, and the jungle turns from a place where they have the technological and visual control to one where they're defenseless and impotent, and they don't know how to deal with this inversion of power. It freaks them the hell out. There's a great back and forth after one of them gets unalived by the Predator, where Arnold asks, how come the thing didn't take his gun and radio? Like in his world, his power is represented by his control of technology and his control of violence, and so it's horrifying for them confronting a world where they don't have this power. I think the movie subtly hints at this in fascinating ways, making sure to portray the guys as going through, quote, more traditionally feminine ways of representing themselves. It's like they have this feeling that this is going to happen to them. When they're riding in the helicopter to the jungle, you got Bill Duke kind of fabulously preening and removing unwanted body hair, and you got Sonny Landham putting on makeup. And this guy tells this awful joke about this lady having like big female anatomy, which Sonny Landham doesn't find funny amidst this kind of anxious mood. But notably, the guy tells another joke about the same exact topic after the group was able to express their manhood a little by unaliving this whole rebel camp, and Sonny Landham finds it hilariously then. In other words, when he's unconsciously anxious about being put in a feminine role, the body image joke isn't funny. But after he's popped off a bit and feels pretty manly, it's now pretty good. Even the trophy and hunting metaphor, the Predator is making trophies out of these guys by stripping them and taking their skin. That's something the only woman in the movie points out as a local legend. She calls the Predator the demon that makes trophies out of men, which was the same metaphor that Andrea Dworkin pointed out when she explored Hustler magazine. She talked about a photograph captioned "Beaver Hunters." She wrote, "The photograph celebrates the physical power of men over women. She's a trophy." And Dworkin then spends the better part of a chapter talking through the relationship between hunting, violence, and male expression of sexuality in America. In Predator, again, the true terror for these jack supermen is that the power relation is inverted, which they try and solve by making their own spaces. The reaction to feeling unsafe is, well, let's assert control over our own environment. So they make their own version of a feminist bookstore or something by setting up traps in a perimeter, which of course the Predator easily gets through. The only thing that happens is Bill Duke catches a boar, allowing him to blow off steam by asserting some dominant violence over something else. Then they start to escape again, and Sonny Landham decides to make a stand by throwing away his weapon and stripping. He's basically saying, if I'm going to be sexualized, it's going to be on my terms, and he does this by stripping and whipping his knife out. Now it gets even more fascinating as Arnold gets chased and then has a sort of genderless rebirth in this river. He falls in the river, which acts as a sort of reset for both him and the Predator. The Predator's camouflage technology fails because of the water, and Arnold gets covered in mud, which means the Predator can't see him. So even though Arnold is at his most vulnerable and gets himself into this very receiving pose by going through the river rebirth, the Predator can't see him. And now we go into this really stunningly shot sequence where Arnold decides to return to his roots and invite the Predator to engage with him on neutral ground, which I interpret as him reasserting his gender expression, which the movie leans into by having him shirtless and doing strongman stuff while building his space. So they fight, and the Predator beats Arnold and has a chance to unalive him, but instead takes the opportunity to look at him and caress his face, and then walk 10 feet away and take his mask off so that Arnold can see him. And again, in a very revealing line, when the Predator takes off his mask so that they can both see each other naturally, Arnold very rudely says, "You're ugly," which I gotta say is a very catty thing to say. But also, that's Arnold flexing his learned femininity. Being bested physically is the worst thing that can happen to a dude according to society, but for a woman in society, the emotional violence of being called ugly outstrips that. The film scholar Patricia White has talked about this actually being a key feature of melodramas in the 40s and 50s. Because there were women's pictures and we're speaking primarily to women, the main points in the movie are intended to come from expressions of emotional violence rather than physical violence. The Predator beats Arnold up some more, and we see this a lot from his point of view, again reinforcing the inversion theme, until Arnold retreats into this little trap domain and gets into a receiving pose again. And then he taunts the Predator, inviting him to get into his cave, and when the Predator finally does, he springs the trap and defeats him using this very phallic-shaped log. Which, like, using sexuality to spring a trap to defeat masculinity? Again, what is this, a 50s melodrama? And so the movie ends with the only two people to survive being Arnold and the woman. Arnold having learned to exist in a world where he's not part of the dominant masculine group, and for the woman, well, hell, this is nothing new.